Hello, my friends, my loves, writers, creatives. If you are looking for information on how to make the most of your profile on LinkedIn, then today's conversation with Rachel B. Lee is for you. Rachel is co-owner and branding lady boss for her company Standout Authority, which helps businesses and professionals build their influence on LinkedIn. And so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into creating a great profile, figuring out your audience, and communicating with authenticity. I can't wait to share Rachel with you. Enjoy. Rachel B. Lee, welcome. Welcome to the conversation. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hello, great to be here.
Thank you. So let's dive in straight away. I really want to look at creating that profile on LinkedIn. And what I thought might be quite useful is if you could take us back to when you were creating your profile on LinkedIn. Like, you can choose at whichever stage of your business or your journey you were on, and some of the things that you were thinking about, bearing in mind who you wanted to see the profile and who you wanted to stand out to.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. So the first thing about creating a great profile is really understanding your personal brand. And so what is the persona? What is the expertise? What is the kind of person that you want to show on this really important business card, virtual business card that is living and breathing, that helps you find jobs, attract clients, get speaking opportunities, all of the things, right? And so when we think about what is our personal brand, what is the voice we're putting out there, I talk about my 4 steps to building a personal brand, which is: who is your audience? Who uniquely relates to your experience? What is your differentiation? So what credibility do you have? So real credibility and trust. And that becomes really interesting on a LinkedIn profile. What are your skills, like superpowers? What are the few things that people really come to you for? And then what are you passionate about? And when you have that, you can create a personal brand statement that starts to be really the essence of your persona, not just on LinkedIn, your social bios, your personas on any social platform, anywhere you go, right? And so I'm the branding lady boss. And my personal brand statement is, Rachel B. Lee is a fearless marketing lady boss who helps people find their voice, build their confidence, create influence, and change the world. And so when you go onto my LinkedIn profile, you'll see in the headline a more succinct version of that in that short character space.
Yeah.
The other important pieces on a LinkedIn profile are your cover photo. Having a really, really great photo. Gosh, I mean, some people don't put anything there, and I like to think of this as like your advertising, like your own banner ad. So what are you putting out there that is visually going to represent your brand, your personal brand, and who you are? And you also want a great cover photo and profile picture. Not looking this way, not speaking into a mic. I don't like that. I'm talking you smiling. And just a great shot of who you are, and ideally on a white background.
Okay.
I think white background is the best. You can do it on colored backgrounds. You want to think about how does that look in contrast with your cover photo, right? So those are some of the pieces. That headline is really critical in terms of people understanding what you do. And you know what a lot of people do is they'll say, I am a writer at whatever so-and-so company. And sure, that's what you do. That's not why you do it. It doesn't help really define your skills or anything like that. And so that headline becomes a really interesting opportunity for you to define not just what you do, but why you do it. LinkedIn is highly, highly optimized for SEO.
Okay.
And so what that means is it's a search algorithm. LinkedIn uses the profiles as a way for you to get discovered, for people to find you, you to get discovered, for your content to get engagement. It's all about that profile as well as the content that you're putting out there. Yeah. And so you want to think about the keywords that you're using. What are the words in that headline and throughout your profile that really describe what you do? So for instance, if you are a writer, what are the things that are important for writer? How would somebody find a writer if you're looking to get a book deal, if you're looking to get speaking engagements? What sort of keywords are people looking for? Because you want to make sure that's on your profile.
I love this. Let's just take a moment to reflect on some of it, because those 4 points that you mentioned, you're like, you've got to know your audience, you've got to know what differentiates you, you've got to know your skills, and you've got to know your passions. When you were talking about that headline, I was like, ooh, is that a place where you can literally try to put some of those across so that you're really going to stand out and show those unique qualities?
Exactly. That is what that headline is for, as well as the rest of the profile. The headline is a limited character count, quick tagline of who you are. Who are you? That is your tagline, right? Nike has just do it. You have your LinkedIn headline. And so, you have an opportunity there to make people interested in you and why they should want to talk to you and connect with you. And you really want to build your credibility. So things that people might want to put in their headline is that they're a speaker. Because if people are looking for speakers, because in search, if I'm looking for a speaker, I want to be populated. So I make sure that I have it on my profile. Some people are podcast hosts. Put that you're a podcast host on the headline.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's not the only important piece of the profile. There's a lot of other important pieces. The about section, the featured section, your experience section are really critical places for you to show your story. Do you want me to get into those? Yeah, more on the
I want it firstly, before we go there, I want to pick up on that passion piece, because I can literally hear people in my audience being like, wait, okay, I'm a writer, I get that I need to kind of sing about my skills, but I'm feeling a little bit shy and nervous about my passions, because maybe they're like, oh, but I don't know if it's got anything to do with writing, or like, what will people think if they find out that I'm really passionate about paddleboarding? Like, is that going to be relevant? So I'd love for you to just say a little bit about how we can be afraid about sharing our passions, and maybe the importance in sharing those passions.
Yeah, I mean, listen, our passions are what makes us who we are. It's what keeps us in the jobs that we have. It's what makes us into entrepreneurs. It's what's our vision. It's why you're here. Yeah. And, for many people, they actually aren't following their passions, which is why they're burnt, they're stressed out, they hate their lives, etc. They're leaving companies, right? Because there's no passion in what they do. Now, that piece of it is important in really just defining my personal brand. That is my value proposition. That's why I am who I am. Now, does that mean that, if you love paddleboarding and you're a writer, am I going to have paddleboarding in my LinkedIn headline? No, probably not. Because unless you're trying to find people that hire you to write about paddleboarding or something like that, that's not really the right instance. But there are other places on a LinkedIn profile, there are other opportunities for you to show your passions through your story, right? And so, for instance, you might be a part of a big organization of paddleboarding in your community. And maybe under organizations, you put that you're part of the paddleboarding organization of Austin, Texas, like whatever that is, right? Or maybe you did paddleboarding and you were an athlete in college. And so you can put that on the profile. So there's a lot of pieces of that page where I can get a feel for who you are. And you better believe it. When I'm checking somebody out, whether they're a prospect client or customer, whether it's somebody that's about to interview me, whatever the case is, I'm reading the whole thing, head to toe, right? Yeah. I'm scrolling the whole thing to get a feel. And so what happens is people really miss out on telling their full story. And everybody is multidimensional. Yeah. Nobody's writing all day.
Yeah, exactly.
You might be a wife. You might be a mom. Yeah. You might be a philanthropist. You could have a dog. You might be somebody that's a first generation of some of, first generation graduate. I don't know, whatever your story is. Yeah. Those are all pieces of your personal brand, and they're all components that can come together on your LinkedIn profile. That's why the about section and the experience section are really critical in addition to that headline. The about section is nearly 3,000 characters worth of space for you to tell your story and why people should hire you or work for you. What most people are doing is they're just talking about them as if they're a resume. Or they're a business owner, entrepreneur, and the whole time they're just selling me on their company. Wrong again.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity for you to really show your story. Like, why did you get into making that business? Why are you so passionate about being that healthcare practitioner or wellness expert, right? Whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then you give the opportunity to say, this is what I do. But first we need to understand why. Okay. Why and what in your experience gives you the credibility to be talking about this, to be hired for something, or whatever the case may be.
It's a nice distinction to make, the difference between like just using that about section as I'm just going to pitch versus I'm going to tell people my story, because as we know, that second point, we're going to relate to it a lot more and we're going to be really drawn into it. I'd love for you, have you got any examples like in your mind of what it's like to look at a profile and be like, okay, they clearly don't know who their audience is, versus how you can look at a profile and go, I literally could guess who that person's audience is?
Yeah, I mean, sure. People that don't have pictures, first and foremost, right? No cover photo is a no-no. Yeah. People that, will have a headline that just says they're a content writer at so-and-so company.
Yeah.
Cool. People that don't have an about section filled out.
Yeah.
People where they talk about themselves in the third person. Talk about yourself in the I.
Okay. Yeah. Talk about the I.
Talk to me. So, talk about yourself and talk to me.
Yeah. And actually, so here's another thing I hear, Rachel. So I'm chatting with writers. I know they're really keen to network. I know they're really keen to attract the right business. And we're talking about their profile, and they may be listening going, right, I've got to get a profile picture. I've got to redo my whole about section. I've got to get my headline. And then what starts to happen is they're like, they're just like, oh, can't be bothered. It's just too much work. And I think what's behind that is a sense of like, what's the point? This sense of like, is it going to work for me? Like, really, if I do all the bells and whistles, is it really going to make a difference? So I'd love for you to talk to some examples, because you will have seen obviously many clients who've come through Authority Accelerator. You will see the difference between a profile that is really shining its light versus one that's just doing no work at all. So for the person who's just like, Rachel, I don't know if I can be bothered. Do I really have to do this? Is it really going to make a difference? What would you say to them?
Why are you on social media at all? What's your goal?
Yes.
What is your goal? Like, listen, do I want to be on LinkedIn all day? Do I want to be on any of these social platforms all day? No. Okay. These are tools. They're tools in marketing. They're tools to bring people into our funnels and to create relationships. That's what Standout Authority is about. How can we use these tools, these offerings, these opportunities like a profile to really build relationships with people? Because we live in a world now that is not around human to human connection. We're yearning for it. But reality is everything has become so digital. Yeah. And for you to get that next client, for you to get that next book opportunity, whatever it is, they're going to be looking for you on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
1000%. And if they come to your profile and they see that nothing is filled out, they're going to have doubts about you. So the purpose of this is to not just like have them have faith in you, but to actually really be excited about who you are. And that is what standing out is about. It's that person that takes the cover photo, that has the video, that is producing content, newsletters, that is active and has a fully blown out profile that you really can get to know. And you build trust in that person. It really builds trust. And that is the essence of creating relationship and opportunity. And because we live in a social networking world, COVID has changed, accelerated where it was already at times 20-fold.
Yeah.
It's not even in-person events anymore. It's all virtual events. I mean, this is it. You don't have a choice.
Yeah.
So, do at least the bare bones of what I'm talking about to create a profile so that you at least don't look fake, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you at least look relevant.
Yeah.
Relevant.
Yeah.
There is nothing worse than looking at somebody and be like, why do they not have a LinkedIn profile filled out in 2021 as we're going into 2022 with almost 1 billion people on the platform? What are you doing?
Yeah.
That gives me doubts in you.
Yeah. I hear you. And I love that you start with like, what is your goal? Because I think there are people who are like, I think I should have a LinkedIn profile. Like everyone's on LinkedIn. And so they get on LinkedIn, but that's the only reason they've got on LinkedIn, because they think they should, or because everyone else is. So I love that you're like, well, what's your goal? And I love that you also said about this idea that it's a place where you can create relationships. So how might you, like, if someone was chatting with you and they're like, how do I begin to create those relationships? I've given people a sense of my story. Is it literally a case of I've put my profile out there, I'm going to wait for them to come to me? Or are there things that we can do, like little things that we can do each day that start to encourage those relationships to form?
Yes, there's a lot of things. So first things first, you have to have a profile, because when we go into the next things, when you don't have a proper profile, you're not signaling to LinkedIn that you deserve to get more discovered and to get more connections and to get more visibility. So it's not just because, I should, nobody wants or thinks they should do anything. This has to be out of your desire for a pain point that you have. And your pain point is that you want visibility, you need more opportunities, you want to make more money, whatever the case is, right?
Yeah.
So that's where the profile starts. Once you have that, it's about creating content and it's about the messaging. So creating content means that you are posting at least 3 times a week.
Okay.
You're getting out there and you're producing content. You are liking other people's posts. You are commenting on other people's posts. You are engaging with others and engaging with those that engage with you. That is sort of the top of the funnel awareness. This is what starts to get you in the algorithm. And we see, like, literally, you will start to appear in searches 10 times more. People that have a proper profile set up, there's something called a social selling index score on LinkedIn, which is basically a tool through their Sales Navigator platform that measures your efficacy of your efforts. And the SSI score is 1 to 100. 100 being the best. 70 and above is people that are really active and doing a great job at connecting, great job at engaging at insights, great job at having a great profile, building their network. People that have a great profile and are engaging have SSI scores of 70 and plus, and you start to be in the top 1 to 2% of your industry. You will start to show up in searches. Maybe now you're showing up in searches 100 or 200 times a week. You'll start to show up 300, 400, 500 times a week. And not only are you going to show up more often, you're going to start to show up with the right audience, because now the algorithm is learning, this is who she is. She cares about personal branding. She cares about marketing, right? She's shifted into entrepreneur. So now I'm starting to show up in my industry more, and I'm going to start to be shown in front of people that I'd like to get in front of. If you're not creating content and engaging and liking, none of that's going to happen. The other side to it, not just on the content creation, is the messaging. The magic on LinkedIn is in the direct messaging, as it is on Instagram and a lot of platforms, right? Like that's where the juice happens. That's where the opportunities start to really unfold. So how are you sending out connection requests to the right audience? And then once you get connected, how are you sort of creating a conversation on the messaging and creating conversations that lead to opportunities?
Yeah.
So it's all 3 of those components: great profile, activity in terms of content, creating awareness, and messaging.
I gotta say, Rachel, for me now, when I get a connection request and someone hasn't put a personal message, I'm just like, what is this? I don't even know who you are. Like, why are you connecting with me? It takes 10 seconds to just say the reason that you're making that connection request. So I'd love to know what you have to say about that, in terms of, if you're saying to someone, don't send a connection request without a personal message, and they're like, but what do I say in that personal message? Because sometimes, and on the other end of the spectrum, I can get a personal message and I'm kind of like, ooh, this feels like it's going to be a very intense connection. I'm not sure I want to accept this. So how do we get the right vibe in the message? And when is the right time to message when you're sending a connection request? And when can you just say, I'm just going to send the connection request and not put the message?
Well, I think we always personalize invites, always personalize invites, always personalize invites. Now, when you're personalizing it, so in this instance, if somebody is listening to this and they're like, oh, I really like what Rachel Beeley is saying, you go on LinkedIn, you go to connect with me, and follow if you want, just follow. That means we won't connect, or you can connect and create a personalized message. What's something you could say? Hey, Rachel, I was listening today with you and Gabriella, and I really loved this interview. I learned this. I would love to connect with you.
Yeah.
Done. Appreciate people. Thank you for that great video that you created. I just saw this post that you did on authenticity, and it really resonated with me. Thank you for posting that. I'd really love to connect. My gosh. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for appreciating. And that's something we really stand by at Standout Authority and talk a lot about. And it's how we work with our clients, that building human relationships online means that we have to treat people like they want to be treated. Like how when you're a kid and your mom tells you, be nice, be respectful, say thank you, say please and thank you.
Yeah.
Same thing online. The way of doing that, saying thank you for that great piece of content is the same way of building that relationship and building an emotional connection. And it goes a very long way, especially on a place like LinkedIn, where while there's a lot of great people making a lot of great connections, unfortunately, there are a lot of people that are using mass messaging and bots too. And so a lot of us do get the, hey, Rachel B, and I get the sales pitch in the connection, right? Those are delete.
Yeah.
For you to break through that, though, a little thank you, appreciation, customized personal invite is like everything.
It makes such a difference. And for me, what's so great about what you're saying, Rachel, is with all of those examples, the little connection message was about the person that you're connecting to. Because I will sometimes get a message where someone says, I really want to be interviewed. Like, I'm loving being interviewed right now. Can you interview me? Versus, I watched your interview with so-and-so. I really love the way you interview. Might you consider interviewing me? Like, it's about the way that you're coming. Is the message about you, or is the message about the person that you're sending it to? And I see a lot of people making that mistake.
Yeah. And I think that if you don't know me at all and you're going to connect with me and ask me for something already, I don't think that that's proper behavior. And that's what, unfortunately, with online behavior, that's become an okay thing to do. And we need to stop that. Yeah. If that is maybe the goal that you would like to get on that interview, how instead are you starting to get to know this person and really ask some questions, and again, appreciate, compliment what they are doing, and see if they'd be interested to talk to you or whatever the case is, before you just go on and ask and pitch something. We have to be careful with that.
Yeah. Okay, let's recap before we move on to the final point, because I do want to talk about authenticity. So we've got the 3 points. We've got to make sure all the profile pieces are there. We've got to make sure the story's there. We've got to make sure that headline's there. We've got to make sure that there's regular, consistent content sharing, not just sharing content, but engaging with other people. And then that final piece, which is like developing relationships with that direct messaging. For me, I have most fun when I'm in the direct messaging phase. Like, I love sharing content, but it's the direct messages where I'm like, this is like, we're having these lovely little private conversations. It's really lovely. So let's go back to the writer who is thinking about setting up their profile and thinking about the kind of content that they want to share. And they've heard about the fact that it's kind of important to be truthful, to be vulnerable, to be who they are. What might you say to someone who's feeling really nervous about how they're putting themselves across in their content?
A personal brand to me is not just how others see you, it's how you see yourself. And that really is quite an inside job. It takes a lot of soul searching, and it takes help. It takes support, right? Mm-hmm. Most of us are living the journey of somebody else, right? We have been programmed in a way through traumas, childhood, whatever the case might be, to be a certain person that might not feel like home. And until like you're in that job that you hate, or you're banging your head against the wall and saying, why isn't my business growing? Why aren't I getting clients, right? You're like, what is wrong with me? And you realize that you've been maybe living a facade, or really not been authentic to yourself. And so when we talk about authenticity, to me, what that means is really having such deep clarity on the person that you are, the good, the bad, the limiting beliefs, all of those things. And you have clarity on your vision and your purpose. And I think that for me personally, this journey of transformation and massive change, I left my corporate job. I'm now working with my husband, entrepreneur, growing a business. The only way I was able to do that was by taking a really hard look at myself and say, I do not feel purposeful where I'm at. And that if I have only this amount of time on this planet, I want to feel at least that I'm able to share my voice and be myself and do whatever I want to do with my life. And to me, that is authenticity. It's really owning that voice, owning who you are, who you get to become, and really bringing that love and compassion and understanding and freedom and joy to those around you. And so, for people that are worried, maybe they're working at a job, they're scared to share their story because of what the company might say or whatever the case is, I think first we always must be true to ourselves.
Yeah.
And when you're being inauthentic. Your audience probably knows too.
Yeah.
And they most certainly know when you're being very authentic and vulnerable. Authenticity is being vulnerable, being intimate, being raw, being uncensored. When I say uncensored, I don't mean that you're being mean to people and saying things that are hurtful. I mean being uncensored and talking about your emotions and experiences. And so I think by, what's available to people as they're crafting their voice is that the more you show who you are, the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever that's comfortable for you, the more people are really going to be attracted to you, and the easier it's going to get. Now, I want to say this too. On LinkedIn, I don't always talk about every single facet of my life. Instagram, I will go a little bit more personal. I'll talk about my leadership program. I will talk about all sorts of things with Josh, relationship, depression, whatever the case may be. In LinkedIn, I will keep it a little bit more on my branding lady boss, my business, and I will bring thought-provoking questions to the audience. And that's okay. Because we're allowed to do different things, have different approaches remember, these are vehicles. But when you get on the phone with me and we're in a dinner together, anything, the same person you see online is the same person who's in that conversation. That's what I want people to say about me.
Yeah.
That's when you're being authentic, and that feels really, really good too.
This is super useful because what I'm getting this sense of is being authentic is about sharing either some of you. So you might be like, I'm going to share this part of me on LinkedIn and I'm going to share that part of me on Instagram because those parts fit on those platforms. So rather than like, I'm not going to share that part. It's like, well, what platform is the right place to share it? And also making sure that you're not sharing stuff on platforms so that when someone was sitting next to you in a dinner party, they'd be like, you're not the person that I've been following or reading. Like, listen to the way that you talk. You're talking about stuff that is totally different to what you're saying to me right now.
Well, then if that were to happen, you've been inauthentic. Yeah. And I think, it's not just about what we post. It's not just about what we post. That is a way to express ourselves to a large audience and to create connection at a global scale. Authenticity is at home with your kids. It's in your neighborhood. It's at the grocery store, right? It's getting into the Uber. It's how are you really being a leader and having integrity and responsibility and treating people well. And so if you're not that human and you try to be something online, which is what most people are doing, is they're faking it, it comes out. And you know what, more than anything, it hurts you.
Yeah.
Because you ultimately are living a lie and living a facade. And at some point you break down.
Yeah.
So I think, the more that we can just really own our voice and get clear on what is our gift to the world and what is that brand, what is that positioning, and then be smart around what we share, how we share it. I do not think that we should put every single thing online and do that. Yeah. Some things are, that's up to you. Like, it's up to you on what is okay for your well-being and for the story you want to tell. So, I just really invite people to, more than anything, get clarity on like, how do you want others to see you? Mm-hmm. And make sure that that's based off of how do you want to see yourself? What is a legacy you want to leave?
Yeah, it's a nice way of putting it. And also what it's reflecting on is there's an element of bravery. Like when I read your profile and so I saw you being interviewed, I went onto LinkedIn, I checked out your profile, everything about what you said in the interview really inspired me. And then I loved your profile because I was like, here's someone who's really showing up for their dreams and being open and honest. Like in your headline, you're talking about wanting to work with people who want to change the world. And I know that there's people out there who want to do the same, but they're afraid to put their vision in public because of like, well, what if I don't achieve it? Or what if people think I'm too big for my boots? So what I love about you, Rachel, is you're showing us the level that's possible, but the way that you talk, the way that you express yourself in your content, it's like you're a real human being. So when people like myself look at you, it's like, yay, we can be a real human being, but also have like super big dreams and we can talk about them. And, I haven't seen any comments on your page where people are like, wait a second, you want to help people change the world? Like, don't you think that's a bit arrogant? It's like, it's just people are celebrating you. So I would say to anyone who's watching this interview, go and have a look at Rachel's profile. We will put all of her social handles below because it's a really lovely example of that beautiful balance between I want to be real, but I also want to be really inspiring. And I want to be a lady boss, which is what you are.
I so appreciate that. I receive that and I really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Rachel, it's been super delicious to talk to you. I would love to just take a moment of reflection. Like, is there anything else? If you think about my audience, they're mostly writers. We've got a portion of coaches in the audience. We've got artists in the audience, all of them wanting to be seen online. So is there anything else that you want to share with them? Anything else that you're like, if someone had told me this earlier on in my journey, it would have made a real difference?
It starts with exactly what we were talking about with your personal brand, your why. And in all my conversations and why I left my job is because people really have lost touch with that and they don't know how to communicate it. So before you start to think about how do I create the perfect LinkedIn post or that perfect, graphic for Instagram, really get clear on what is the message you're trying to put out there. What is your value proposition? Start there, and then create content based off of that. And when you do that, don't overcomplicate it. You don't need to overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
You talk about the same few things in a bunch of different ways and do it over and over and over and over again. That's how people start to remember you.
I love that. Don't overcomplicate it. Like it's okay to just have a few niche areas of topics and just really focus on that. Yeah.
It's better. It's better to have a niche and have a bullseye. This goes back to the audience. It's better for you to have that. Be the branding lady boss. Have something that people know what you do and why you do it. And then land and expand, I say. You want to keep hitting it so people get what you do. And then surely you might talk to me and you'll realize I have a lot of capabilities and I'm a stepmom and I do this and that. But people need to know why, who are you? And the more niche you are is actually better when it comes to starting to create some thought leadership and a voice versus just trying to be the author. What kind of author? What kind of writer? How specific? Who exactly do you speak to? So I think in this world, you want to be known for something, which means you want to be more niche.
Oh, beautiful. Rachel, thank you so much. We will be putting information about Standout Authority. Is that something that people can join year round? Do you have a waiting list? Do you open doors at a particular time of year?
I'm so glad you asked. So we have our 6-week live class with me and my husband, Joshua B. Lee. It starts February 10th, 6 weeks live with us. We go through how do you brand yourself? How do you get noticed? How do you become a creator? Super awesome, very intimate, and limited spots in that. We're actually, we're running that right now. So people can join for February 10th. So would love to have some awesome people join us. Otherwise, our services are done for you one-on-one. So if there is that interest, do reach out on LinkedIn.
Perfect. So what I'm going to do, because I know Standout Authority, there's a website for that, but I'm also going to put your LinkedIn, because that was how you and I connected. I was like, oh, is she going to reply? But you were great at getting back to me on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is definitely the place to connect.
Yes, exactly.
Beautiful. Rachel,
thank you so much.
Yeah. And, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your clarity and your wisdom today. I know there's going to be plenty of things that people have, people were going to have light bulbs going off. And so also, I just want to say, folks, any of you who've been watching today, if you do have questions or if you want to put links in the comments below of your profiles on LinkedIn, we would love to see that. So let us know your questions, let us see your links, and so we can continue the conversation. Rachel, wishing you a really beautiful rest of the day. Thank you so much for being here.